Welcome back to the Maven Show. This is your host Rohit. Today we have Karan, the CEO of Shockingly Different Leadership and Leadership Strategist. Thank you, Karan, for getting into the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Rohit. I'm glad to be here.
Amazing. I would love to be having you into the show to talk about how to be a successful leader and so on and how to be into this. So you've been into this industry for long. So would you like to first explain something about yourself, your quick intro, how you got started and so on and so forth?
Well, I'm, based in the States in Atlanta, and I've always, even from a young child, have always been interested in what made the most successful people kind of tick, if you will. Even when I was little, I used to look up to, my family members, stars and celebrities, politicians, you name it. I was like, how did they get renowned, right? And so you kind of fast forward through life. I ended up being in the career of human resources. So I got to study people all the time. Leadership has always been a passion. So any kind of time I could be assigned to training or learning more about leadership, I did. And fast forward through, 18 plus years in corporate America, I actually led the Global High Potential Leadership Program for Microsoft. So there were 4,200 leaders at the time that were in the program at all career stages. And that was kind of just the thrill of a lifetime. And so then when I decided to start my own consulting firm, we actually started out in just leadership development, did a lot of research and wrote books on leadership. But then more and more clients wanted additional services and kind of in the people side of business. So we expanded to support human resources, talent development, and organizational effectiveness, like culture initiatives.
What would you like to say specifically about the leadership, like what leadership means to and so on?
Well, at the core, leadership is all about doing your best to influence some sort of action or response from others. You're trying to take others along on the journey, but you have to earn the right to have people follow you, because they're just not going to follow you willy-nilly. I will share that before the pandemic, my firm actually started and commenced a research study, and we were focused specifically on the best practices for leadership acumen and execution. So we were focused more on what did the best of the best do? What did they actually physically do to ensure that their leadership efforts were very successful? And so we interviewed over 10,000 individuals in organizations who were deemed to be high performing and high potential. Those are kind of the labels in corporate around their key talent. And so long story short, we were able to identify over 100 behaviors or traits or actions that the top leaders did. But what was interesting out of the research was there ended up being a clear line of demarcation between the top 7 and the rest of the group. And what was also interesting is out of those top 7 tactics, we call them tactics, that the best leaders did, or the most successful leaders did, what we found is that it was universal, no matter your job role, your function that you're working in, and whether you're working in a company or organization, a nonprofit, or an entrepreneur. These 7 tactics dramatically increase one's ability to be successful in any leadership effort. And so I'd love to share some of the research of what those 7 were really quickly, if you're open to it.
I think we will be talking over in the next thing. So, got it. And how you would like to explain about the entrepreneurial leadership? I mean, what I mean by that is is it for everyone, or is it just specifically something has the guts to do, be a good leader and so on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And from my opinion, leadership is leadership, or the acts of leadership of guiding others to some sort of course of action apply no matter if you're an employee in a business or if you're an entrepreneurial leader. What I think the dynamic for entrepreneurs is that you're trying to lead your target audience to buy your products or services, and you're having to lead your business in a lot of different facets at the same time, while an employee really focuses on what their job role is. And being an entrepreneurial leader, you have to have multiple focuses at the same time. So that's kind of how I think through it. The active leadership is the same, but the way you think about it, plan it, and execute it is different if you're an employee or an entrepreneur.
And you were talking about the 7 pillars into leadership, like 7 leadership tactics you were talking about, like most leaders execute.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So, So I'd love to share with your listeners what those 7 tactics are. Now, I will say up front, they're not rocket science. It's something that we all could do, and you should understand them, but you use them in different ways and at different times. And all 7 are important. One's not more important than the other. You just might use it differently based on what you're going through. So really quickly, I'll run them down for you. The first thing was all successful leaders led with what we call intellectual horsepower. Intellectual horsepower is all about using your knowledge and expertise to find opportunities that others miss. And this is very important. As you know, entrepreneurs are always looking to find answers to a problem that nobody else has figured out, right? And they want to bring that to into the public. So leading with intellectual horsepower is the first one. The second one is leading with courageous agility. Courageous agility is about having the courage to do the right thing for your business or your company or your initiative, even when you're unsure about what's going to end up happening, like the future might be unclear. So strong leaders definitely have to have the courage to take a chance to do something, even if you don't know the true outcome, what it will be. So that's the second one. The third one is leading with strategic decision making. Kind of self-explanatory, but this is all about either making good decisions yourself or leading a team with a good decision-making process. And for employees, they're usually working with their teams within a company. For entrepreneurs, they're usually working with, a small team to launch and grow and scale their businesses. So leading a good decision-making process is also very key. The fourth one is about leading with entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is similar to entrepreneurship, but it's still about improving products, processes, and services, but it's taking it to the next level. And so always having an eye out to continuously improve what your offerings are is very important. The fifth tactic that we noted was successful leaders had a strong drive for results. They always wanted to be very tenacious about getting to their end goals. They were okay with pivoting if need be or course correcting, but they really had their eye on the prize of what they were trying to achieve. So that was another key behavior. The sixth key tactic that they all used was leading with executive presence. And executive presence is all about making clear and convincing presentations in order to influence others. So like having their data and knowledge down, being able to present it in a way that will convince others to invest in them or support them in whatever they're doing. Those that had that dynamic grit, if you will, to present compellingly were very successful. And then the last one, the tactic was leading with stakeholder savvy. So stakeholder savvy is all about really relating to the people that you're working with and understanding their perspectives and making sure you're very sensitive to their thoughts, needs, and perspectives. It's similar to what people call emotional intelligence, but it's kind of the sister tactic to that. So those are the 7 tactics that all successful leaders use in one way, shape, or form in any of their leadership initiatives. And yeah, those are the 7.
I have personally seen the recently published book by you, like Lead at the Top of a Game, you know. So
Yes.
how you would like to explain or a quick summary of that book, even for me, because I haven't even read that book. So, and even for the listeners too, like what's the quick summary of the book? So
Yeah, so we actually talk about we use playing a game as a metaphor, if you will, and we talk about how the most successful leaders are able to capture the attention and influence others in a way that will compel them to follow or to do what they're asking them to do. And so the first part of the book, we talk about this whole concept called providing differentiating value. What that means is that you have something so compelling that someone's going to stop in their shoes or stop scrolling on their phone or stop doing what they're doing to listen to you. So you have to have something that's very compelling and of interest to them. And we talk about how to do that. The middle part of the book, we talk about the 7 tactics that I just shared with you that came out of the research. And we have real world case examples of companies who have executed them to help you understand how they're used in the real world. And in the final part of the book, we talk about how to be a strong, what we call leadership athlete, because it's very draining. It can be very draining and hard to be on the top of your game all the time as a leader. So we talk about how to be a sustainably good leader, where you can keep your performance level high for as much of the time as possible. And so that's kind of the high level summary.
what's the next book you are about to publish?
Here's a great question. I have friends that ask me that all the time. Well, what I'm playing around with a couple of ideas, but one book that I do know I want to do is, I have a podcast of my own, which is the Lead at the Top of the Game podcast. And in each of the podcast episodes, we ask the leaders to give one tip or idea or thing for or topic for our leadership playbook. And so what I would love to do is to collect all the lessons that I've learned from others that we featured on the podcast and pull those together in a book or ebook or something like that, so that it's real world examples of how people overcame leadership challenges. So I know that's one of them that I want to do.
Well, thanks, Karen, for sharing these insights about your book, about being into leadership and so on. And we would love to have you in the next few seasons, which we will be rolling into the Maven Show. So, like,
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to come back and share me more when I have the next book written and published. But in the meantime, it was fantastic being with you and your listeners.
thanks, Karen.
All right. Have a good one.